You're good to go.
Right, you've lost me as a picture, but
I think that's because we're now live, David. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to come to this webinar from London Borough of Croydon on our library service and working with our colleagues across the community-run libraries national peer network. Got presentations from a number of colleagues from across the country, and I'm really pleased to be able to share their stories of how they've developed community libraries. Before I start, I'll just do some housekeeping, so I'll just share my screen. Just bear with me one moment. So I'm just trying to okay, hopefully you can all see that now. So just to say that this session is being recorded for those who are unable to attend on the day. If you do not give your permission to being recorded for your questions to be logged, please do leave the meeting now. You are able to come back and watch the recording at a later date, but this is your opportunity if you are not willing to be recorded to leave the meeting. So without further ado, I'm Robert Hunt. I'm the interim head of assets and involvement in place department at Croydon Council, which covers libraries, museums and archives, parks and green spaces. And today we're joined by colleagues from across the community managed community run libraries national peer network, and we've got colleagues so David Smith, who is the founding chair and from Wall Community Library in Dorset. We have Margaret, Adjaye and Emily Jewell from Upper Norwood Library Hub, Kamal Shah from North Harrow Community Library, Sally Long from Cricklewood Library, Chris Clarke from Jesmond Library in Newcastle, and Jeremy Kleins from Garden Suburb Community Library. I'll start off by handing over to Councillor Lewis just to say a few words.
Thanks, Rob. Morning, everyone. Look, we had a good session earlier on this morning, and it's good to see that a number of people have returned, so we haven't put you off in that first hour, but there are also some new faces joining us for this session as well. So it's really good to see everyone involved and so much interest and passion in our libraries. Obviously, we're in a very difficult financial situation in Croydon, and we do have to make some quite dramatic and tough choices from right across the council sort of portfolio of services, and that includes in libraries. But we are hoping that that doesn't mean closure. We're hoping that we may be able to change the model and work with our communities in a different way to ensure that library services do are maintained in the future. And look, I mean, it's really great to have the input and the expertise from, you know, near and far. So from Upper Norwood to Jesmond, that's quite a range of experience. And I'm looking forward to hearing from all of our speakers here today. Thank you to all of you for joining us. And look, we hope that you know, we can benefit from some of your experiences, from some of your insight, and we can develop some of our own community models here in Croydon as well. So look, I'll leave it there. Thanks to all of you for being here. Thanks to our library staff for working so hard in really difficult circumstances, and then thanks to our residents for being interested and joining us as well this morning. So over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. So I just reshare my screen. I will hand it over now to David Smith to give you a bit of background around the CML. and his experience so far.
Thank you, Rob. I've lost the picture as far as you're concerned, but I hope you can see me. If not, I'll do my best just by voice. But I'm speaking here as the chairman of the CML network, the national network, not as an individual from Wool, but I will say something about Wool in a second. But the thing I want to get across from the CML network is we're not here to sell community managed libraries. We're not here as advocates. I think maybe none of us got into this on the basis that we didn't think that libraries should be run consistently and for the by the local authority. But having made a decision to close, then our message is that we will be there to support and help any group that takes on a community managed library in whatever way we can, but do that on the basis of whatever is negotiated locally between a local authority and its community is acceptable to all parties before they embark upon the road. I'm 10 years on from or 10 years back from here, really, in terms of Wool. We were faced with closures because of austerity measures back then, and some of you will remember all of that, and therefore that was the strength of binding the community together in opposition to closures. But when closures happened, then of course we sorted out what was the best deal for us and for the county authority in Dorset at that time. And the authority originally wanted to close 20 libraries. They finished up with 9 closures, of which 8 became community libraries, and it was a negotiated process in which we were equal partners all the way through. We describe in Dorset more of a partnership than an imposition, and we have got very much now a system that is welcomed and run by all. We have to think in terms of equity. Do people in particular communities feel they're getting less of a service because they're in a community library than not? But more than that, we've built up from being just running the community libraries, but have started outreaching with other activities and other services where space and skills of the individuals permit. We do have total integration with the library service. We do get all our books to the local authority, and not just the local authority, but we're in a Libraries West consortium, which delivers books from several authorities if on order, if we want them. And that has been a strength of, in a sense, staying in close contact with the local authority. And we have 2 meetings a year. It's to strengthen and to sort of bind the ties and to make sure everything is running correctly. And at the end of the day, we do have a situation where we have a rolling contract with the authority for on a 4-year basis, so that from whatever date either party needs to or wants to end that arrangement, there's got to be 4 years elapse before that can be brought to an end. And I think local authorities faced with the prospect of not being able to keep all their libraries and want to grow community, that sort of time scale needs to be observed, because I use people gearing up to learning all the ropes and doing everything without a long lifespan of that sort of time to to keep going. That's me. That's roughly what happens in Dorset. I'll answer any questions if people want to know about communities, but primarily you've got experts from other parts of London and people from it, as you've got Chris up in Jesmond, who runs a totally different model. So that's the final thing I want to say is there is no model community managed library. It isn't the local authority library or a community managed library. The community determines the shape of the library, what they want to offer and what they want to, and no models are entirely the same. That's enough for me. Over to Margaret.
Thanks, David. Just wanted to say a few words about the network and the sort of things that we do through the network. It was formed in 2017 with input from the Upper Norwood Library Trust, DCMS, Libraries Connected, and the Arts Council. So I think we came into existence as a network because we recognize that there's so many communities who are going through this process, and there are communities who've taken on their libraries and running it. So we sort of came together collectively to set up the peer network to make sure that if there are communities who need advice, signposting and support, you know, they can come to us, we can talk to them. And as David said, we're not advocating anything. It's purely a peer network. It's purely about providing support to each other, learning through our network meetings, which are monthly, learning from others who've actually gone through the process and been challenged by the process or have experienced any difficulties in the process. We share our experiences with them. And the great thing is that, you know, we had a community a few years back who went through exactly the same thing. Our sort of previous trustees fought very hard, secured the library, and today here we are as Upper Norwood Library Hub. So if we can do anything to sort of support other communities by giving advice and signposting, we organize learning events as well to sort of like skill up people who want to sort of like go through the process or are going through the process. So that's purely what the network is about. It's a network of peers who support each other. And very recently, we've supported Ealing, we've supported Northamptonshire, we're sort of looking at a few others in Leicestershire. So, you know, people are coming through to us because they want to hear from us in terms of what we've done, how we did it. And, you know, we just carry on. It's about support. That's basically it. So thanks, that's my input.
Thanks, Margaret, and thanks, David. David, there's been a couple of questions that come through on the chat. I just wondered if you'd be okay to answer those.
Yeah.
If I read that out now, the first one is, does the local authority pay for your books and your involvement with the Libraries Consortium?
Yes, is the short answer. What originally, when we started talking, and all these things were done in joint working parties with the council over a period of time in 2012. They thought originally you're going to be a community library, you'll have your own tickets and you'll do this, that and the other. We said no, we must have the same service as the rest of the council taxpayers of the county. So it was then, not only did they agree the book circulation and the refreshment of books remained the same, but in the contract that we had with us, there was a certain number of books guaranteed, new books every year, that started with each of the 8 libraries and then were put in circulation, general circulation around the system. So it's very integrated, and they we get provided with the public access computers and the printers and the book returning machine, and obviously we're totally integrated with the the computer systems that run the thing, and that's maintained for us. It's part of the deal.
Excellent, thank you. And there's a subsequent question for you as well, David. So how has COVID affected your community-run libraries?
Well, the community libraries have been open more than the county libraries, because we were able, before the county libraries had felt safe to reopen, produce systems for click and collect, order and collect books from the store, which we do in parcel. So how does it affect? Well, which a number of our volunteers, obviously being the age group we are, have occasionally had to self-isolate or back off, but we have had enough volunteers to continue the system when we've been able to open. We only open 3 days a week in Wool. I don't know, and it differs from the other 7 in the county, between them how many days are open. But we have 35 active volunteers, so we have sufficient to run shifts and so on.
Excellent, thank you. So at this point, I know there's a few more questions coming through the chat, but if we pick those up, because they seem to be also available, and I think will be covered as part of other responses, so we might pick those up towards the end if that's okay. So just move on. So if we hand over to Chris Clarke from Jesmond Library. Hello, Chris, are you still with us?
Chris is muted at the moment. Is he being muted? Oh, he's off now.
That better?
Oh, that's great.
Great. Sorry, my Wi-Fi cut me off a while back, so it took me a while to get back on. Right. We're about 8 years on from you, actually. I think David started off saying he was 10 years on. When our council had a public meeting to announce that they were thinking of closing our library, we immediately set up a community group with 2 parallel objectives. The first objective was to stop the council closing the library, but the second thing that we agreed at exactly the same time was that if the council closed the library, we would bid to run it, take it over and run it. Well, we lost the first campaign and won the second one. So we've been running the library now for about 7 years. And just to underline what David has said, if you look at all the different community libraries, you'll find huge variation in the models that we operate, partly because of circumstances and partly because of choice. In our case, we're completely independent of the local authority in the sense that we buy our own books. We have a lease on the building, and we're not part of the council's statutory library service. 2 or 3 things I wanted to say, which I feel we've learned from experience. The first is that as a public library only, we could never possibly pay our way. It's only because of the range of other things that go on in the library that we can keep a library open. And that means events, it means occasional fundraising amongst the community. It means a whole range of other things which are part of being a community hub, because you can't run a building like ours, which you can see in the picture, on the basis of library fines. There's absolutely no way that it would be feasible. Other tips I feel we've learned: first of all, take advantage of all the help that's on offer. We got a lot of help when we were contemplating starting up by talking to other community libraries. So I would definitely advise any other community group thinking of doing the same to take advantage of all the advice on offer. One of the things is advice from the local authority. Our local authority made it quite apparent to us from the start that they couldn't afford to give us any money. But the sort of informal advice we've had and the sort of off the record advice we've had and the sort of friendly advice we've had both from officers and councillors has been absolutely invaluable. So even although the council couldn't give us money, they have helped us in many other ways, and we've taken advantage of that. A very specific tip: make sure you get hold of the key to the building, because unless you can freely run events outside normal hours, again, there's absolutely no way you're going to make a success of it. When our local authority library was being run by the local authority, you couldn't hold an evening meeting without paying staff overtime rates. And that made evening meetings or functions, community groups using the building in the evening absolutely unfeasible. Whereas now, I have the key to the building, several other people do, and if somebody wants to have a meeting at 10 o'clock at night, I go and unlock it. And it doesn't cost us anything other than lighting, etc. So having total control of the building is absolutely essential. Basically, I think we can't run as a library as such without the other community events going on, but those are mutually supportive, because I think the value that our community place on the building is linked to the fact it's a public library.
It appears that we've lost Chris there, unfortunately. If we move on, and then if Chris wants to continue just towards the end of the meeting, that'll be great. Thank you for that, Chris. So if we hand over now to Sally Long from Cricklewood Library.
Yeah, hi. So Cricklewood Library is, the library closed in 2011. So we're nearly 10 years in, and we are in a strange position that it's taken us this long to even get the premises near to the point of opening. We were going to open last year in March. Obviously, circumstances were against us. We're literally just completing the building, the internal fit out of the building. We've negotiated virtual freehold, and although that's 999 years, we have to pay a management fee to the people who actually own the freehold of the building. It's a new building. What Chris was saying about trying to manage how you generate income, our model was going to be like a lot of the other community libraries that we have, venue hire as a key way of earning money. Obviously that's been out the window with COVID. And like everything that's happened to us, we've had to kind of spin on a sixpence and adapt at every point. So once we'd negotiated our freehold, we then had to find a lot of money, and we've had to raise a huge amount of money, even to just get to this point. So always there's this concern about funding. We don't get any direct funding from the council, and we haven't got a deal to receive any books at the moment. We certainly won't be on the council's book management system. So that's all going to have to be run independently. And so there's a huge amount of skills you have to gather around you. Fortunately, I don't know about anyone else, but we seem to have a surfeit of ex-librarians locally. So that's very fortunate for us. We've got on our books about 160 volunteers, and 25 are active, even though we're not open. And without them, we couldn't even function as we are, up to the point of the pandemic biting, we were running 3 book shares in local stations because our venue wasn't open. So, you know, it's a matter of really trying to keep linked into the community and finding different ways to do that. We've got a huge amount of book stock which have been donated. We've got loads of other donated things, but yeah, the actual mechanics of running the library we haven't been involved with as yet. We're aiming to open about 3.5 or 4 days a week, and hope that we'll generate income from the other days by people hiring. We're in an area where there's no other local public space, community space, and so that puts us in a good position. But even trying to keep the library alive without a premises, that's a huge ask. Being part of the peer network has been huge for me and for Cricklewood Library, and I must say sharing stories and hearing people's experiences is very useful. So this is a great resource if people are going to go down the road of taking on a library. Yeah, I just really, I think David said at the top, you know, we're not an organisation promoting community libraries, but people find themselves in this position. And so, you know, it's something we're all having to battle. And I just would say that you need a really strong core of people who want to drive this forward, because it is demanding. And in terms of volunteers versus paid staff, you know, the two aren't mutually exclusive, and the ideal is that you get to the point where you have paid staff. So really the key, I think, is trying to balance the books, which is the same for everybody in life. And you know, we're very fragile at the moment financially, I would say, because of the situation. So yeah, I don't know what else to say really. It's the other side of it is it's a fantastic community bonding experience, and there's some very great things that happen, but it's very unfortunate we find ourselves with an incredibly valuable resource like a library, that it falls to the community to be responsible for it actually in every aspect of its operation. So that's it really. I don't know what else to say. We have 2 large spaces. We've got 187 square meters. It's not huge, but we've done a lot of planning, and you know, when it's not locked down, there's a great possibility to have a good financial model, including, we hope, a paid member of staff.
Excellent, thank you, Sally. Just got a couple of quick questions for you, if that's okay. So the first is donated book stock actually the stock that your library needs?
That we need?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a moot point, isn't it? I mean, we actually get given a lot of current books. I think in terms of what people want to read, we don't actually know yet. I mean, you know, the way that libraries choose books that they put on their shelves varies. We actually have a huge range of books at the moment, and very good condition, and we've received books from schools, from the American School in London, so that's very current educational stuff. We've received books from publishers, and we don't we're not going to put books on shelves that aren't in very good condition. Unfortunately, the donations are pretty good. I wouldn't say that we would necessarily select the books in this way, but I think that the selection of books that we have is varied and offers a great range of reading. So it's not a traditional method, but I wouldn't say it's that. I think the books are what we need, and also they're free. You know, I mean, that's not to be sniffed at. I would say when the library closed, there was an awful lot of book stock, and our borough said they stored them, but actually none of those books were ever seen again. But I do think that the other side of it is it's not only books nowadays. We have to make things available online and so on. So that's something we're looking at, and the library, the borough libraries will support with that. They will allow us to share their e-books and so on. So short answer, probably not. Or maybe yes.
Thank you for that. There is a second question. So if you knew 10 years ago what would be involved in what you are doing, would you have gone ahead?
Well, I've revealed myself as an incredible optimist, and I think most of us are that. So I think so, because the library's like huge. I mean, yeah, you never sign up, for difficulties, but at the same time, the libraries are so important. And realistically, no, of course I wouldn't, because it's been really hard. But if I looked at the results and weighed it up and said, do you want to be part of this really rather extraordinary exercise in conjuring something out of a big nothing? Yeah, I'm slightly heroic. I feel a little bit heroic. I don't know about anyone else. I think we're all pretty heroic. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. And there was one more question that's just
Really?
which was around the book stock. So it says, are donated books the only stock you'll have at Cricklewood Library?
Our budget, if we manage to get it back on track, will allow for about £7,000 of book purchase if we need it. I happily won't be part of the book selection team. We're going to have a changing roster of team membership for that. So we will be looking to buy books. However, if we do get donations that meet the criteria, then we will hopefully put that money to other things. Sorry, people in my house. What can I say? I'm going to shut the door.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll at that point we'll move on in our presentations. So if we thank you, Sally. If we now move on to Jeremy Kleins at Garden Suburb Community Library.
Hello, thank you very much. We are from Northwest London. We are in a very special area called Hampstead Garden Suburb, which is a community of 5,000 households within the borough of Barnet. In 2011, the borough announced they would close 2 libraries, ourselves and Free and Barnet. We got a petition together, and through that, they offered to let communities bid to run the libraries at low or no cost. We had a very active residents association, and under their auspices, a group of us got together and bid to run the library you see in front of us, and won. And the deal, which is again very different from what you've heard from my previous colleagues, is that they pay the rent. You can see we're a lovely, very small shop. They give us £10,000 grants. They gave us 4 computers, 2 for the librarians and 2 for the general public. They gave us a printer, and they gifted us the furniture and the existing book stock. But apart from that, and they also bought us a library management system. We are totally independent from the Borough of Barnet libraries. So we issue our own library cards. Our library, we started from no members at all and built membership up. We buy our own book stock, and we run it totally independently. We're open for 5 days. That's Tuesday to Saturday. This is during normal times, obviously not COVID. from 10 to 5 o'clock, and we have 2 shifts, 10 to 1:30 and 1:30 to 5. Each shift has 2 volunteers, and their job is to actually open the library up, run it, pass it over to the next shift, and close the library, and they do that independently of the other trustees. We have no paid staff at all. The whole library is run by volunteers. We buy our own books. Out of our £10,000 grant, we use about £5,000 to buy books, and we buy books that people want. Basically, they fly off the shelves. Initially, the borough bought the books for us out of our grants, but the problem was they were buying books that people didn't want, whereas now we buy books that people do want. We have other activities. You can see that we have very popular children's activities, as you can see on the screen. We have those on Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings. We have a book club. We have author talks. We're very lucky in that we don't have to raise finance as such insofar as we live within our grants, although we do obviously have income from fines, from printing, from various other things like that. You know, again, we're very different from a number of other libraries. As I said, we have about 40 volunteers. Initially, we were able to recruit from locally because, as I said, we have a very defined area, but we now recruit from more London-wide, which gives us a much better age range and a great variety of different volunteers come and join us. I would obviously at the moment we're shut, but we're running Click and Collect. Once COVID is over, if any groups would like to come and visit us, that would be very welcome. Certainly the Ealing groupings came to visit us. You can see more online, and I'll be very glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeremy. It was really insightful. There's a couple of questions that have come through sort of immediately. So the first one is, can I confirm the council gives £10,000 per year grant and pays rate?
No, they give us £10,000 grant, pay the rent. The rates, we are a charity, and we get 100% relief on the rates. But we have to pay all the other costs, so light, heat, you know, all the overheads we have to pay for, but that comes out of our grants.
Excellent, thank you. I accidentally clicked on the wrong thing then. So the follow-up question to that was around how many registered members do you have at present?
Okay, just to give you some statistics. We've got about 3,500 members, not all active, but about 50% of our business, if you'd like to call it like that, is children's. We can't cull any children's books at all. The only way they get taken off the shelves is if they fall to bits. Whereas you soon learn with a library that if you buy books, buy a book, you've got to take a book off the shelf, and we obviously cull adult books. We've got a book stock of about 7,000 books.
Excellent, thank you. Just a couple more questions. How do you ensure books available are demanded, and how do you monitor which books should go? Is there a service to pay books from the library, like a click and collect, but to keep the books?
Well, there's a lot of questions there. Obviously, click and collect is very different from our normal service. So with click and collect, we're just doing a normal loan service. People, and again, you'll see from our website, there are full instructions on there. People either email in order forms, or they drop order forms through the letterbox, or they actually come. We have a table in the porch, and they come and order to their orders through over the table. We prepare the orders, one volunteer in the library at any one time, and we put them on this table, and then they are collected. The normal loan period is the same, 3 weeks, but we've suspended fines. So if people don't return them, there are no fines. I think there was something about buying books. We have one very experienced volunteer plus a committee. She knows what our readers want, and she buys according to demand, basically. We also do have a suggestions book, and if people want books, we'll buy them.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So there are some more questions that have come in, but I think we'll pick those up from a general Q&A session towards the end, if that's okay. So if we move on now to Kamal, Shah at North Harrow Community Library.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Hi, North Harrow Community Library came about because in 2014, Harrow Council put out a consultation to close down 4 libraries. At the time, I was under the illusion that whoever makes the biggest noise might get saved, but unfortunately that didn't work. So we ended up fighting to get it as a community library, but it was never the intention of Harrow Council to make it into a community library. So we had quite a battle from 2015 when it actually closed to 2018 when we actually did get the keys to the library. We've ended up with a sublease on the building for 20 years. We don't get any funding. We are completely independent of Harrow Council. We don't have to pay any rent, but we don't get any funding in terms of our utilities or anything like that, running costs. We get 80% relief on the grant, on the rate, sorry, the business rates, and Harrow Council have also given us a 20% discretionary as a charity. We don't buy any books. We get donated tons and tons of books. We've only spent about £50 since we opened in 2018 on books, which were specialized books, which we needed, which weren't donated. Apart from that, all our books are donated. We've spent £2,000 on book covers, but nothing major on books. We, again, rely on events, room rentals to finance the library. We were open before COVID 5 days a week. We have 80 volunteers. We have quite a range of volunteers. We have people who are retired to younger people who are working still. People who are working do help us outside the library with our social media. Since COVID, we've started a YouTube channel where volunteers put on videos for our users. When we got the keys, we got the shelves, the book stock, which was about 12,000, and 3 years of dust. So we had to spend 3 months cleaning it. We had to put in all the IT infrastructure. We have set up our own book lending system, open source system, which didn't cost us anything. We are particularly good at getting resources from the community, expert resources. So we've got somebody who set that up for us, and we try and get as much help out of the community as we can. We have so much donations that we actually sell books in the library. And since November, we've started a huge operation on selling on eBay. So between November and now, we've taken in about £1,500 from eBay. We initially received a £10,000 grant from the lottery fund, and we were break even at the beginning of 2020, but obviously since COVID, all our hires, room hire, our events have all shut down. So there was a danger of us going under because of running out of money. But luckily, the lottery fund gave us 10,000. And since then, we've qualified for the business support grants since November because of the change in our rateable value was above 51,000. So we didn't qualify for any grants, but since November we have, and we've about £20,000 we've received in grants. So I'm pretty confident we will be here next year. And we have, as I said, we have 80 volunteers, so we have a huge community. I think we run our library more as a retail space, so we're more customer focused. So the library is there and it will always be there, but our more as a community, developing it as a community hub is our more priority. So I hope that explains North Harrow Library.
Thank you, Kamal. Just checking the questions. So the question that came through is, who organises your volunteers and how much time does that take?
We have one of our trustees is responsible for organising the rotas and all that. I mean, running a library, it doesn't matter whether it's just that or anything else. I mean, he's taken over my life. I'll be the last person to be running a library because I don't read books. So when I tell people that, they wonder, why am I running a library? It is quite a commitment. It's not easy, but you need people with different skills to come in and help out. We use 3 Rings, which is a software which organizes the rotas for us. So it is a commitment. It is a big commitment. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's, you know, an easy thing, but it's something worthwhile.
Excellent, thank you. So just conscious of time, if we move now on to Margaret and Emily up at Norwood Library Hub, and then we'll move on to some questions generally from the sort of cover all of the libraries so far, I think. So Margaret and Emily.
Hi. So if I start, then Margaret will chip in and pick up everything that I'm bound to forget. So a little bit about us, if you don't know us. We are run by the Upper Norwood Library Trust. The trust was formed in 2012. It was on the back of a campaign to save the local libraries. And the trust was formed to do 2 things, primarily to protect the Upper Norwood Library, considered to be a local community treasure, prevent it being sold to developers, contest planning cuts to the library service. So they negotiated successfully with the local authorities, Lambeth and Croydon, who jointly own the building, which led to a covenant between the trust and the councils for the building to be run by the trust on behalf of the community, with the trust covering all operational costs in exchange for the continued provision of the lending library service. So in effect, the community now safeguards the beloved community assets and provides a service to community members that they see as a vital and staple part of our landscape. So our library service is run by Lambeth, but jointly funded by Croydon and Lambeth. But we pay the bills to the tune of 250,000 a year is our amount that we have to raise to keep the lights on and the doors open. The library hub itself came into existence in 2016 when Margaret and myself were appointed to lead and develop the community business. And we started running services and activities that aligned to the core values, responding to the needs of our community, which was key. Pre-COVID, our monthly footfall averaged 20,000. And we will do and have done when we can throughout the pandemic, provide a mix of performance and visual arts, health and well-being, educational opportunities, affordable hire, music, open mic nights, a library of things, and cultural opportunities for all. In response to COVID-19, we pivoted services and developed our own streaming platform, which is now established and has an average monthly reach of 30,000. The team is made up of one full-timer, our Chris Neath, our library hub manager, 6 part-timers, including Margaret and myself, and 4 others. Part-time for us ranges from a day a week to 4 days a week, and 4 flexi workers. The core activities that we base all of our services and tailor everything to are lending and sharing, culture and creativity, community learning and education, community enterprise, and health and well-being. But again, our way of working is we see ourselves as partnership all the way from the beginning to the end. And ours is definitely a partnership and collaboration with Croydon and Lambeth. And we enjoy a really fantastic relationship with both. And I think for us, again, I think we might be the only ones from today that have the library service that is completely still in the hands of the local authority. And it's a great swap. For us, that's been a great swap and has worked well. Margaret, what would you want to come in and add everything else?
You've done it beautifully, Emily. What can I say? I think that I'll probably sort of say a little bit about the fact that we earn a majority of our own income. I don't think people realize that we do, but nearly over 41% of the income that we generate comes from all the activities that Emily described here. The other thing as well is that we did have some funding or support from the councils, which has stopped now. So it ended in 2020, wasn't it, Emily? So we have to sort of go out there and bid for our own funding. And you know, the last funding we had from the councils was 26.5K from each council, which, as I said, is ended. That was the last one. But you know, that since we set up in 2016, both councils have supported us right through to 2020 when the funding ended. And as I said, we have worked, and the team works tirelessly to earn our own income from all the activities, the space art, everything that we do. But also, Emily and I and Chris spend a lot of time writing tons and tons of applications for funding, so we can run the performance events, the well-being events, the community learning initiatives. We also have lots and lots of partnerships set up, so we can actually keep what I call a very dynamic and focused space where the community can come in and enjoy activities that we offer, but also benefit from a range of services that people say they do need and want. So we don't just initiate our services, that we work with the community to do that in our space. I think that's probably it.
Yeah, and I mean, just to say that, I think costs are a real, and I think that echoes everybody's mentioned that at one point during their presentations or talks about their own libraries, even down to the business rates, because actually that is local authority specific. I think we sit in Lambeth and we know that we will never be given the discretionary amounts to take that cost away from us. So that in a normal world, I know at the moment because of COVID, we're not paying it. That alone costs us 10,000 a year. So I think it is one of those ventures to go into with your eyes wide open. I think Margaret and I both came from much larger organisations and were used to raising larger sums and dealing and managing larger sums. And we thought it would be so easy to get a relatively small amount of money. And boy, did we have our eyes open, didn't we, Margaret?
Yes.
But I think we would both echo as well everybody else's sentiments that it is a really worthwhile thing to do. But I think it, again, with us and with everybody else, it's not a preferred option. This is something that if you feel your community really still has a need for that library, and you can see a really good working way, which potentially could be about getting a core business or idea or money maker at the center of it, and then build, and then that enables the library service to be provided, is a really strong option. So I hope that there's lots of options, lots of interest out there from people, but yeah, have lots of time on your hands.
Excellent, thank you for that presentation. So we've got a few questions that have come through, and one of the key ones that's been asked several times by people is how much do Croydon Council and Lambeth Council each pay to run the hub and the library, and also when do those payments stop?
So I think Margaret's already answered that. The payments have stopped. We did have seed funding, which was additional for the first 3 years. And we went through a refurbishment, which was part of the agreement as well, because the building itself had been allowed to get into a serious state of disrepair. Again, this all comes down to individuals and looking at your proposals and seeing what you need or what you think that you need. We don't, as Margaret said, we no longer get any kind of funding, but we are fundraisers. So anybody with those skills, I think this is a good opportunity for you to use those skills. What would you say, Margaret?
Absolutely. I think that in terms of funding, as Emily said, 3-year seed funding, and then we renegotiated another 2 years, didn't we? So which is when it ended in 2020. And that seed funding was really useful in helping us to sort of like come up with all these ideas and initiatives that we've got in the community space, which obviously we're building on. So it's not a case of money's been given to you, just, you know, do whatever, but it's the money we had has helped us to build some vital services in the space. But most importantly, I mean, we do a lot around performance arts, and I'll give a classic example of what we've managed to do during COVID, which is a lot of artists who didn't have any work at all. We've been able to help them through some of the funding we've got from the Arts Council to come and do some wonderful stuff in our space, which is then live streamed and, you know, globally, not just locally, globally. So, you know, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's money that has actually enabled us to be where we are. And as Emily and I have said, we work really hard, sometimes through to midnight, 1 o'clock, writing bids to different funders, so we can actually continue to provide the services and also run the space. But additionally, our team works very hard to organize things in the building so we can generate income to sort of cover all our running costs, maintenance costs, everything in the building at the moment. I don't know if that's...
And as far as the library service itself goes, we don't have any costs to give you there. Well, I'm not sure how much that costs Lambeth and Croydon, because that's our swap. That is our agreement, that we pay for absolutely everything else. But mainly because I think that it's part of a central system, you'd probably be looking at the staff cost, which is 1 full-timer, which equates to 35 hours a week. But the building is actually open for 44, and then we're open in the evenings and at weekends and afterwards as well. So I think the pre-COVID, again, this is all pre-COVID, you'd probably be looking at about 68 hours a week, which is where most of our, because our structure is that we have a core of paid staff, and we are supported by a body of volunteers. So we have 80 volunteers on our list as well. Some who were coming in regularly. And again, I think David said this at the beginning, a lot of our volunteers fell into the most vulnerable and to COVID category, which is why we had to really look at volunteering immediately the pandemic hit. And that's our biggest cost, is staff.
Fantastic, thank you. So I'm just conscious of time. We're right on 1 o'clock now, and I realise that we've not had an opportunity for sort of the wider questions and answer session. I just wondered whether all the panelists would be willing to stay on for another 15 minutes just to answer some of those questions.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you very much. So I'll work my way down from the top, if that's okay. So this is a general question. It came up during David's presentation, but I think it's probably relevant to you all. How do you cover the running costs of the library building, and do you have to pay rates to council? So originally that was for David. So if anybody would like to follow up.
Yeah, our main income is from membership of the friends of the library, which is a steady amount, but we only have about 125 people and only paying £5. So you see, that doesn't go very far. We probably give you the answer to the other questions. We are subtenants of our parish council, who actually own the building. One of the reasons why Dorset pulled out of these 8 rural libraries is that they wanted to get out of the lease that they were paying for the use of the premises, and that's where they saved from base budget. So we have an agreement with the parish council that we occupy the buildings for free, and we don't pay for heating and lighting, and we clean the building ourselves, and that's about it. We only operate for 3 sessions a week. It's a tiny library. There's not enough space, so we don't do anything like lettings or anything like that. But I think what the point made about fundraiser is key. You really do need to have an active fundraiser as part of the team. Not always the easiest person to recruit, but they are like gold dust. What hasn't come out over the whole of the session that I can, as I can see it, is that we haven't talked about the amount of training that went in to volunteers before we took over. We had for about 9 months running, and we had to cover training in child protection or vulnerable adult protection, health and safety, etc., etc. So all those things need to be in place, and you need to have those specialisms. And so if you've got any form of trainer amongst your team, then you need to make sure that those aspects get covered. Health and safety obviously is a thing that trips people up as well, so that we do need to have people that are capable of writing and understanding risk assessments. Next person, sorry.
Can I make a quick answer to that question as well? It's Chris from Jesmond. Our business plan is based on trying to raise enough money to cover the basic running costs from assured regular income, and that is primarily room hire and our Friends of organisation and the events we run. And we generally try and use the grants for other things like improving the building, setting up a new local history section, running special activities for older people or whatever. So we try and raise the basic running costs from our own efforts, if you like. We don't pay any rent to the council, and we don't pay business rates because they've given us not only the charitable concession but also the extra 20%. So we don't pay either of those things to the council, but we do actually pay the council for them to look after the boiler and do 1 or 2 other things around the building.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to come in on that point, or shall I move on to another question?
I can come in if anybody. It's Kamal.
Yep. Over to you, Kamal.
Yeah, our budget is £25,000 a year to run the library. Majority of that comes from rental of the space, which is about 12,000, and we have 6,000 used to come in from events we hold. We normally try and hold 4 big events a year, and then the rest come from sales, photocopying, things like that, and donations. I think one thing you need to understand is your demographics, because Chris and in Jesmond is slightly different to ours. They get a lot of standing orders because of the they have older people there who are quite willing to do regular donations, whereas we have very young families who will donate as they come into the library rather than do a monthly standing order. So I think you need to understand your demographics as well at the same, in order to work out what is the best options for you. I hope that helps.
That's great. Thank you, Kamal. So just moving on to the next question, and this is one for everybody. So could each speaker state whether or not their model is cost neutral to the council, as this is what Croydon Council is looking for?
Should I jump in there? What exactly do you mean by cost neutral?
And I was going to say the same thing. People try to claim things that are cost neutral, and there's little explanation as to what that actually means. If you're seeking to remove X amount from the base budget by doing this, then I think you have to look at demonstrating that you have to, that what you're doing is a recurrent saving, and not to say that it is, because if you're not doing it to take money out of the budget, then why are you doing it?
Yeah, I'd like to add that, you know, that we apply, for instance, for community infrastructure levy money for different projects, and so there is money coming out. That's money that's usually generated year on year, so there's a pot. Not all councils share that money. But in terms of cost neutral, I'd also question, you know, the benefit of the library has actually got a huge benefit in terms of people's well-being, and the impact on the community without the library there is an actual impact in terms of people's being able to function well. At the moment, you know, with lockdown and everything, there's huge, you know, again and again we hear about the impact on people's mental health. One of the things the library provides is a place to go that and it has a positive benefit. I think it was Bethnal Green for they actually allocated the council allocated money from their mental health budget to the libraries because they could equate the positive outcomes as a net saving. So, you know, there's I'm not sure it's useful to look at it as this kind of neutral, cost neutral. There's an actual positive for the council to have the library to continue functioning. So, you know, that is something that needs to be negotiated, and it's not so tidy. It's not, I'm not going to buy chocolate anymore. You know, this is an essential service that the council doesn't want to or is not able to run themselves. But that doesn't mean that there won't be a cost. And also that does not mean that there won't be a saving, a benefit. And so, you know, those things need to be taken into account. And for instance, Brent, and I didn't give a proper background for Cricklewood, and I'm sorry, Brent closed 6 out of 12 libraries in one go, and 4 of the libraries are community run now. But where the libraries are not anymore, there is a huge impact on the community, and that cost is a knock-on cost to the council. So, you know, these things need to be taken into account. So I think neutral, no. Actually, the libraries bring a positive, a benefit, and so it's a matter of really looking at where that is. On the other hand, you know, I do think for us, we don't want the council to tell us what to do. They made a hash of running the libraries, and we don't think that they should be part of running the library, which we haven't yet achieved to get open. But we also don't want them part of that system because their thinking is not actually led by the community, whereas we are. We're led by the community.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come in on that point? Or
I mean, I would say I think that you've got to look where that's coming from. I think that Croydon are in a particular situation here that's forcing that kind of language to be used. I mean, I think 60 million off of a budget a year, you're looking at adult social care and bins and schools and all sorts of things. So I think from our perspective, Croydon have always been incredibly supportive partners, and I think somebody else said as well that even if money isn't there while you're negotiating with local authorities, other levels of support can be incredibly valuable sometimes. And I truly feel from our experience that support would be there from Croydon. So yeah, so I think that we're in unprecedented times.
So true.
Yeah, look, and just to come in from our point of view, Rob, as well, obviously, there may be a possibility for support or help in kind from the council, but obviously we do have to dramatically reduce our library's budget, and you know, the challenge for all of us is to try and imagine, you know, a library service where we do achieve the savings we have to achieve, and you know, a possible way of doing that is in working with the community, and you know, hopefully we can develop some models which reduce the library's budget as much as possible, but you know, maintains the highest level of service that we're able to do. So you know, I think we all have to try and be optimistic and ambitious in our thinking, and if we do that, then we might be able to find some solutions. And look, it's not black and white, it might be a hybrid down the middle, but given the financial resources available to the council at the moment, and the wiggle room we have, and the support that we might be able to provide, you know, is potentially more limited than it might have been a few years ago.
Great, thank you, everybody. So I'll just move on now to some of the more recent questions. So there's been lots of questions around volunteers and the use of volunteers and DBS checks and the percentage of volunteers that are retired and training. So is anybody able to provide a bit of more information around how their model works with the use of volunteers, please?
Can I come in?
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing is that when we started, we recruited volunteers, and because we're a unique area, they came in quite quickly. And it wasn't for 2 years. For 2 years, we operated quite satisfactorily, but then we had a number of people let us down, and it really struck me that actually volunteers are as big a resource as finances. You know, it's we don't know volunteers, you don't run a library. Same thing with finance, but with volunteers. So we actually appointed, and one other contributor today also said, we appointed a trustee in charge of volunteers. And she has much power, as you know, the rest of us do now, because it's so important. We have, as I said before, we have a complete variety of volunteers. When we started off, because it was only locally, most of them were retired. There were a few younger ones, but now we are recruiting more London-wide. We have a great variety of volunteers going from probably 20s, 30s upwards. A lot of them are working, some of them have used us to get jobs. We've had one library student who has gone on to get a job using us for experience. So I think it's very important. I think every area you have different problems recruiting volunteers. We have one other person under the trustee who does the rota. We do that on a spreadsheet. And we try and keep our volunteers engaged by having meetings, and in normal times we have volunteers party, and we've had a couple of Zoom sessions to try and keep them involved basically during the lockdown, even delivering bottles of wine so that we can have wine.
Excellent.
Can I also say that in Upper Norwood Library Hub, we use volunteers for projects specifically. So we've got a wonderful team of volunteers who do the ESOL, the English speaking classes for us. So you've got the core staff, or the staff who are obviously trying to sort of like sustain a business in the community space Then the volunteers, we work with 10 to people who come in and do very specific projects for us. Our volunteers, like in most community libraries, are very, very talented. So they each bring expertise that we harness and use within the building. And we do CRB checks, yes.
I'd just like to add to what Jeremy said, really. It's worth thinking about what the volunteers get out of it, as well as what they put in, because we know that our volunteers like volunteering and they benefit considerably from it. And also, because we are totally self-managing, if our volunteers want to run a Spanish conversation group, then our volunteers run it and they enjoy it and they benefit from it. And if another group of volunteers want to exercise their DIY skills by repainting a room, well, great. And if other volunteers want to use the work experience they've had with us to get a job somewhere, great. And that includes a number of students who are librarianship students who work as volunteers with us and then end up getting a job. So in the same way that I think money is a two-way thing, I think volunteering is too. Okay, the library needs volunteers, but the library can give a lot to volunteers as well.
Can I just one other comment? We do DBS all our volunteers, and we do it through Borough Bar.
And look, can I just take this opportunity, Rob, to say thanks. We already have a pretty good network of volunteers in our libraries in Croydon. A lot of these are young people and people who are wanting experience. People are doing it because they've got a lot out of the library service. And I just want to say thanks to all of them. It was good, maybe about 18 months ago now, to say thank you at the end of year appreciation session. And I know they do a lot of work on things like the summer reading challenge and other things as well. So, you know, thanks to all of our volunteers who already helped with our library service.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just conscious of time. It's now gone beyond the 15 additional minutes that we'd set. We will continue to answer the questions that have been provided today, and if some of those are specific, we will forward those on to the relevant friends who've been helping us today, and hopefully get a response to those. But I think at this point it's probably worth drawing the meeting to a close, but we will take the time to reply to all the questions that we've not had an opportunity to cover today. So
can I thank you, Rob, on behalf of the network then? I know you thanked us for doing this session with you, but we do want to stress that we are a resource for people when we can help. Obviously, as we're all volunteers ourselves, then you know, there's a time limitation on the sort of support we can give, but you know, we will not let anybody down if they come our way.
Thank you very much. That's really appreciated. And I think for me, this session's been really useful just to look at the sort of broad range of different operating models that community and voluntary run library services have, and maybe sort of justify some of the conversations that we've had with people who come forward to say we can't be prescriptive on this. It is on an individual basis, and sort of hopefully these experiences that have been provided today sort of help justify sort of our response to those initial questions. We are more than willing to work with any community group around building business models that are viable for each of the libraries that are currently proposed to be closed. Yeah, if I would stress, if you are interested in looking at proposals, then please do get in touch via our libraries consultation email address, which is librariesconsultation@croydon.gov.uk, or leave a message on our dedicated answer phone number, which is 020 7884 5159. I'd just like to take this opportunity again to thank everybody for the time, from all the panel members, for coming forward and giving their knowledge and expertise and time this morning. It really is appreciated. So thank you. And to all the attendees asking the questions and listening in, it does help just to show the passion that you have for our library service and your local communities. There is a poll that's gone up live now. We greatly welcome your feedback, and thank you all again very much for your time.